natural and renewable resources, education, skills and employability, social capital and structures, institutions and governance. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. We will begin this evening by lighting the lamp. May I request His Excellency, Mr. Sujit Ghosh, Dr. Balu and Dr. Katumuri to please come up on stage to light the lamp and to officially unveil the book. Okay, so just to light the lamp then, please. Request His Excellency, Mr. Sujit Ghosh, to please say a few words.
Thanks, Goduli, and welcome everybody. I see all of you turning up while outside it's quite bleak and very cold, so really appreciate all of you coming for this event. I also have the privilege to welcome Dr. R Balasubramaniam, and as you know, today we would be doing a UK book launch of his book Power Within, the Leadership Legacy of Narendra Modi. I believe Goduli has already spoken about Dr. Balu, and she's also given all of you some insights on his latest work. So I would not go much more into it, because I am not the authority. I think the authority is here, and I'm sure you would love to hear from him. But while flipping through the pages of this book, I got a copy only earlier this morning. A couple of thoughts which readily came to my mind was that this is a work which is as much about philosophy of leadership as it is about practice. And of course, while we were having a chat outside while coming in for this event, I had a chance to discuss this bit with sir, and and of course that was a question that Ruth had posed to him, because in his book he basically contrasts between the leadership, the DNA of leadership as approached by the West, and as what he calls through the Indic lens. And what I could readily absorb from his work is that leadership in the West is more about power and authority. Leadership in the Indic style, and to put it in a very crisp manner, it's a very deep topic, but it's more about a journey of self-discovery, of service or seva, and transformation. So I look forward to a very enriching discussion, sir, and I look forward to Ruth asking you the right questions and getting us the right answers. So all yours, Ruth, and all yours, sir.
Lovely, thank you so much. We will now begin the main segment of the evening. Dr. Balu will be in conversation with Professor Katumuri for about 40 minutes, after which we will have Q&As with the audience. Thank you. Over to you both.
Can you time us?
No, I could if
into that varied journey that you have had, and what was the motivation through that a really wide-ranging thread of your own career life journey, and through that also explain to us your motivation for this book.
And she said only 40 minutes.
So we can be flexible on that.
Okay, the first question,
I
can I
have
take?
to wait till the High Commissioner comes here, so if the audience is willing to wait, I'm sure
I can't
we'll
take
have
away.
enough to talk
I
about.
can't take away all the 40 minutes for the answer to this, but in a sense, like the introduction said, I'm a physician. My life journey started off as alarms in the world.
Yeah, so I don't know, so with your permission, we'll just putting them.
It's better than alarms ringing. You know, an angry young man always feels very, believes that you have a magic mind in the world will be a better place. It took a lot of years of being knocked on the head to realize the world has got its own pace of change. The change happens, it's got its own pace of change. So my inspiration comes essentially from Swami Vivekananda and his call to the end. Very powerful writings of his. For example, he says, I call every young man a traitor who, having been educated at people's expense, pays not the least heed to them. Or a sentence like, I do not believe in a God or religion which can't wipe away their widow's tears or bring a piece of bread to the orphan's mouth. We should say, remember that these sentences are in a particular context, in the 1890s, etc., where the challenges that our widows face in our religion and all that is real. And so, for me, when I read his works, etc., just after graduating and didn't get into engineering school, I never wanted to be a doctor. When I was trying to study engineering, I was so badly ranked that I didn't have the courage to go back to the engineering school, so I would go to the Ramakrishna Ashram next door and start reading books just to look busy. And it was this inspirational thought and his call to the youth to actually go out there and do something about it rather than just talk about it. He said, give me a handful of young men and women and they'll change the world, he said, not just India. So when I got an opportunity, it was with the determined intent to go out there and do something with it. And that's when I got called to join the Mysore Medical College. So for me, I never been to the Indian village. Growing up in Bangalore, a typical middle class environment, for you a village is something distant thing out there. You watch the movies, you don't really go to them. And I started this organization when I was still a third year medical student. And so I said that's my life. So 87 I moved into this tribal area. And that's when I realized that one of the principal exploiters of the indigenous community was the state itself. That really angered me. But I was so helpless and impotent that I didn't know how to find solutions. And over time, my expression of this restlessness came out as fighting the state, suing it, and actually winning battles. But in the process, I realized that I was troubled by this thought, why can't the state, which says I want to protect these people, which has got special accommodated spaces for these people, doesn't take the time to understand these communities and invest time in doing something about it. So my anger turned toward the policymakers and public leaders. These guys are screwed up. They can't even understand this. Can't they see the pulse of the people? They say they go to them for votes, but they don't understand the pulse. They thought, maybe I don't know enough. I was very young. So I thought, let me go discover this at what was then considered the mecca of policy and public leadership. So I went to the Kennedy School at Harvard. And I thought they have answers for me. As most universities don't tell the students, they really don't have answers for all the world's problems. They only have answers to hope that the students will go back and find the answers themselves. And in a sense where I thought I had better frameworks now to ask the questions rather than say that I found the answers. So coming back, there's one place where Swami Vivekananda writes and says, all knowledge is within you. It's our responsibility to discover it. It makes sense. But why am I looking outside of myself where I could find this jnana? Help me understand, unpack the challenges of indigenous communities. A lot of the people I'm interacting with, the traditional chieftain, possibly there's one name which comes out in all my books, several of them. A chieftain called Kempaiah. I still remember I had sued the government of Karnataka and the government of India for violating the right to life and right to livelihoods of tribals. And they won the case in the Human Rights Commission. And I thought, we got 500 acres of forest land released and got 2.5 acres non-violent struggle achieving something like that, that deserves to be celebrated. And Kempaiah comes to me that evening, very crestfallen, very sad, and looks at me as though that he didn't want to talk to me. And I didn't understand. And then I told him, listen, I just achieved the impossible. I thought you would garland me, fall at my feet and say, hey God, you got us something important. And here you are so upset. And then what Kempaiah told me possibly inspired me to understand leadership from a different perspective. Because Kempaiah was a traditional chieftain, but he lived the ethos of leadership because I had to go to Harvard for leadership. And Kempaiah told me, you never understand. Your victory is actually our loss. And that stuck with me. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we never had individual ownership in a cultural existence. But today you come and say, you got 500 acres of land, each of us get 200 acres of land. You've actually made us individual owners, that is completely against the way we lived all our life for centuries. And he said, my identity comes from Jal Jangal Jameen. Kannada I said it, but it's easy to say it in Hindi. And then he asked me a question. He said, you've taken away our identity, in a sense from ownership context, but much deeper. But he turned around and asked me, well, you people in cities will never understand this anyway, but what is your identity? Well, that's a very, very difficult question, because most of us, at least increasingly of late in India, we seem to build identities based only on fragmentation. Now, we'd rather say I'm from Karnataka, I'm from either geographical fragmentation, it's ideological fragmentation, it is caste fragmentation, religion fragmentation. You can have 100 reasons to fragment. But very rarely we find it unified as an identity. And I was, being what I was, such an angry activist, I was unwilling to accept an identity driven by any of this, either my profession or my college or anything like that. So I said, let me take the Bharatiya identity. It seems to be all encompassing. But then it hit me, I hardly knew anything about Bharat. It's a very painful thing to discover. So I can say in my words that I am Bharatiya, but what is Bharatiya? And for many of you sitting in the room, Bharatiya could just be an Amastika Katha comic that you read or a Chandamama story you read. But the deep appreciation of what is Indic is what my journey began. And for 12-13 years after that, I started with Jataka tales, the Panchatantra, simple things like that. I turned to Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, some Adi Shankara's works. I looked at the works of Ambedkar, I looked at the works of Gandhi, and looked at what is the message they are talking. Because there's some very deep philosophy in their messages, more than the symbolism that we attribute them to. And I felt that there's so much stuff here that I could put it together and write a book. But I saw all these through a leadership lens. I didn't see it through a scriptural or a spiritual, we can call it, lens. But I thought it should be practical utility, right? I mean, why do young people don't read the Bhagavad Gita? Maybe they get put off thinking it's something spiritual for 60 plus time. But it's possibly the most application-driven psychology textbook you can get, or a leadership guide you use in your life. If you see it in a particular way. But let me put it together. I put it out here. The research is still huge, but I have not used all of it here. It's too big. Then I thought, we are a very strange community as Indians. When you discover something priceless, the best way to treat the priceless thing is whether the message of Gandhi or Ambedkar, all these people, is to make a statue out of them, put them on a pedestal, declare a Jayanti, put a garland every once a year to them, clean the statue, put up the garland, distribute sweets, and go home. I think I have done my job. But I follow what the message is. I didn't want my book to talk about characters from that perspective. So I looking for a fresh and dead example, which people could causally relate to. Since I didn't discover anybody, I just gave it up and wrote a book called Leadership Lessons for Tiny People, which is actually extraordinary leadership life of what people dismiss of as very ordinary people. The street vendor, the self-help group woman, the tribal chieftain, and stuff. When I use this paradigm but in a different context. Then I was blessed to have a guru, Ramakrishna Order, Swami Sureshananda was his name, and I was telling him, discussing a lot of things with him. He used to help me unpack the scriptures. And he said, I don't know about leadership. You ask me about Advaita, I can tell you, but not leadership. And I thought, okay, I'm done. I can't write anything anymore. But then he told something else. He said, I don't know much about all these things. I'm talking of 2009, 10, 11, that phase. He said, what I could tell you is, a young man of 17, 18 came to the Ramakrishna mission at Rajkot, wanting to be a monk. And my brother monks tell me that he's somebody extraordinary, but he was sent away saying, you become a graduate and come back. He went to Belur Mutt, the headquarters of the Ramakrishna Order. He tried there again. They told him the same thing. He still traveled around. And then after his graduation, he went back to Raj school. And the monk there was the same monk who was heading the ashram. And he looked at him and said, well, I have to now tell you, your destiny is not monasticism. It's not being a monk. Your destiny is something else. And that destiny is intertwined with this nation's destiny. And so I think you should become a monk, and sent him off. He was Swami Atmasthanand. He later on became the head of Ramakrishna order. In fact, for those who tracked Prime Minister Modi's life, the first time he became Prime Minister, 2014, immediately after the next day or within 2 days, he visited the Ramakrishna mission to take the blessing for the same monk who had proposed this. And so he said, his name is Narendra Modi, why don't you write about it? And I said, I live in a forest. I have no access to this man somewhere in Gujarat, Chief Minister of the picture of him. I just came up. But 2021, when the call from Delhi came, I had to be a member of a commission which was born out of Prime Minister's vision of transforming India's civil services. He calls it Mission Karmi Yogi. The Capacity Building Commission is the custodian of this mission. So I thought, why not? And at that point, I didn't really realize that this mission is it's a brainchild of the Prime Minister himself, and he is so connected to it that we report to him. And I didn't really. So I went after a year, I realized that here is a person whom I have access to now. And I can see him and judge him. And you know, as an academic, you appreciate, you want to be objective. You don't want to get carried away by charisma. When you're very close, the charisma can ruin you. So it has to take a lot of effort for me to step back. I thought, can I write about it? Can I actually use the filters? Well, I discovered a lot. I have not said everything I have discovered I used in this book, nor I have said that all the scriptural paradigms of leadership I have tried to filter in through, but everything I have written about him in this is filtered to the paradigm of leadership. It's an exemplar. So I went to him and said, I have done this research, can I use you as a case study and analyze you through this framework? And I was asking too much, I know, but I just thought, let me try. At best, he'd say, no, go ahead. So I thought, let me ask him. And strangely, not so strangely, he said, no, I'm not interested. And what he told really, to me, it was something, a different part of what the media makes out to be. He said, why do you want to write 400 log abhi tak Modi Pak kitab ke hoye? All these Modi Paks write a lot of this stuff. I don't want another book which will get a Modi Pak kind of I'm not interested. But then I explained to him, I have done so much of research, I don't want to waste it, why don't I use it? Then he told me, well, I'll agree to it provided you agree to 3 conditions of mine. The first condition he said was, this book is clearly about Indian leadership. Well, don't make it about me. So this is not a biography, this is not a hagiography, it doesn't capture him in any sequence. So this is about Indian leadership as I interpret it and how I analyze it with that framework. And I've got put some structure into it. The second condition he said was, he said, most people think leadership comes from the West. And he laughingly said, you also went to Harvard to get it. So I said, I didn't go anywhere, I only learned what the earthy groundedness of India teaches me. And so I would like you to capture it, put it in an evidential way. Don't forget this as to carry your academic rigor into it. It should be scrutinizable by the global academic to say that I'm just dualizing me or I've actually got some stuff inside. So it's an academic book. Though my research notes was more than 100 pages, if I put that, I wouldn't have taken the book at all. It's only 50 pages, I've reduced it to 50. So just explain that it's a lot of work has gone into it. And he said it should be a sort of a Vishwaguru ka sandesh on leadership to the world, saying that you can look at leadership through this perspective. So it's not critical of any Western models or anything. I'm just presenting 2 alternatives, 2 ways of looking at it. Maybe one works in one context, maybe another works in some other context, but it's useful to build the body of literature. Because when I went to Kennedy School and did a fellowship on leadership, etc., I realized that there's the one model they are familiar with. They don't have the tools to, or the language to talk and see through the intelligence. So I thought I need to add that body of knowledge, and that's what I've attempted to do. The third condition he put is obviously not in my hand, it's possibly in the hands of audiences like you. He said, after reading this book, people should feel inspired. 1,000 leaders to serve Bharat should emerge. And that's what the huge means. I'll start.
Thank you. You answered several questions in that one, so I think we'll try, and there are more questions that can come out of this, but in the interest of time, just a couple of comments I would like to make is what the community said to you when you won the case for them. And in fact, in that, there is a statement about leadership itself, because what had happened was unintended consequence. You didn't intend that, but it was
models, the Adar says, you're no leaders, you're no followers. Right? That's what it begins. Essentially, an identity of leader comes from the followers you have. So the West celebrates the individual, the person. And it's a border identity for somebody following you. Right? It's not about you leading a choice, it's about you standing in front of others. But it's again about it's a norm version, it's a person, it's an individual. But if you go deep into Indian thinking, it's never about the person, it's about the expression of what he does. It's an activity. So the way I describe it and I define that, I give two different definitions of it during the book. One, I say, the way India looked at it is always about karma, action. Leadership is an activity that you undertake by mobilizing yourself and your resources and those of others around you. So there is always a relational angle to it, not just you. You mobilize everybody. It's not leading and standing in front of everybody else. And to do something societally constructive. There's an embedded statement of society in everything in the Indian thought. But amidst enormous uncertainty, you really don't know what it will result in. And the Gita, that's the power of the message of the Gita. You still inspire yourself to perform the action. And don't claim the enjoyership of what action is resulting. So I felt that is very powerful. So the westernized notion is about celebrating a person, the Indian thinking is about celebrating the actions of the person. The westernized version is about staying focused, the Indic version is about staying focused on the work at the center. The karma takes precedence over the karmic. It's about the work at the center matters. The Western world is about I should be seen to be doing the work. So I am at the center, I am the CEO, I am the president, I will sign $100 today. So that is very strong and powerful. Whereas we don't look at it. $100 get signed and it's for the society good. The Western world celebrates the expression of the aham, or you can call it the ego. It's a very difficult word to translate. Aham is a difficult, it's not an equal translation. It's about celebrating the expression of me. It's about my actions, what it celebrates. Now, I led this to victory, or I led the team to series victory, and so I'll take the responsibility for debacle and stuff like that. But for us, it's about sublimation of the aham. Where on one side it's about expression of the ego, on the other side it's sublimation of the ego. On one side it's about authority, on the other side it's more about indriya nigraha, control over your senses. Now the West is talking the language and saying they have different words, say managing hunger is one out of leadership. But in essence, it's about not just managing hungers, it's actually transcending them itself. And we are a little ahead of it. So the way I saw it was, they're very powerful concepts. And it's in a constant evolution, where the demonstration of learning is continuous and permanent. The West is about expressing your zones of competence. Now, if I'm an economist, I operate in the world of economics and say everything is perfect. But India permitted the space of operating from zones of incompetence. So if I'm incompetent, there's an urgency for me, a humility is required to learn. An acceptance of somebody else might know more than me, and therefore there's a sahakaryata embedded in it, I can collaborate, and I don't have to do the leading all the time. So in India, you don't have to be 24/7 leader, and you can just step aside in a situation which demands somebody else to express the leadership, just step aside and allow them to express it. So I found this fascinating, and therefore I punched all this together and called it what I said. Even the way we communicate, I write detail about it, communicating with you. So for me, I realized that leadership is a sadhana, it's a lifelong sadhana of constantly evolving yourself. And I conclude with saying the outcome of leadership is a powerful Vedic message. It's Swami Vivekananda popularized as a motto of the Ramakrishna Order itself. It goes like this: it's Atmano Mokshartam Jagatitaicha. My moksha is important. That's the purpose of existence itself. But that is only by society, Jagat-Hita. So in a very practical way, it's not about denying myself private gains. Some of us might seek private gains in making wealth. Some of us might seek private gains in evolving myself spiritually. But private gains underwritten in the fact that it must produce public good, it stood out very strong for me. So I think that finally that is the leadership we should seek for.
I want to talk to you about what you portrayed in the book on Artha Shastra's 3 essential Shaktis. And it'd be good if you talk about it, but also, based on our conversation earlier, try to connect it with other examples of practice in India's own history. So if you could connect it with the Kautilya's Arthashastra, as well as the way Ambedkar practiced some of these Shaktis as well.
See, I think Arthashastra is a very practical place. He has no time for any storytelling or any of this. That's why it's so short. But I'd like to start off with something else. You know, the word Rajadharma, we use it so lightly today, as though it's something everybody understands. But it starts, you should understand, this word originated during the thick of the Battle of Kurukshetra, the Mahabharata. It's a fascinating conversation, the way it's described by Vedavyasa in his Mahabharata. Bhishma is lying on his bed of arrows, choosing his time of death. Yudhishthira goes to him, he says, the war is done. Done and dusted, I've killed everybody, Kauravas have lost, I've won, I'm now the king. Now you are a grandfather, and now you please tell me, how do I rule the kingdom in a manner in which this thing doesn't recur? Look at the society. I have to rule the kingdom, I've already done my duty. My dharma as a king is done, I've vanquished my opponents. But then how do I rule it in such a way that these things don't happen? That's what matters. And Yudhishthira is explained to how to turn his kingdom by Bhishma in 10 paradigms. Extremely powerful. I call them the 10 tenets of Rajadharma. Now he says a king's responsibility as a ruler is these 10 things. Now you look at it, you can try it, I've tried, to add a one or two more. You know, from a policy perspective, being trained in that, I say, okay, can I add something to it? And it's so difficult to add, it's so complete. If only our public rulers followed this, the world will be a better place. From ecology to economy to environment, everything. But then what do they need to follow? That's where Kautilya comes in. It's so beautiful. Even the Ramayana has got I didn't write about it, but Ramayana where Bharata and Rama have a conversation. Bharata goes to Rama and says, you know, you can't get away with not ruling the kingdom. You were trained, all of us got the same Kshatriya training, but I was not trained to be a king. I was a pampered kid in the family having fun. You just go away like this, so come back and do. And Rama explains that, you know, Bharata asks for the paduka, the footwear, the slippers, but we just get lost in the symbolism saying that represents Rama. No, it represents the idea that Rama gave to Bharata. That is the representative democracy you can think of. But he says it so beautifully. In there, Rama, it's a governance manual. His instructions to Bharata how to rule the kingdom. Even there, Rama says what you need is a mantra shakti. Don't ever presume that just because you are endowed with the power and authority of a king, you have all the ideas of running a kingdom. You need a set of highly qualified, competent people who will be independent experts in different subjects. You need their counsel and pay attention to that. Don't decide about the counsel.
Clarify by mantra shakta, those who may not understand Sanskrit. By mantra shakta, you mean Shakti, you mean the power of counsel.
Exactly. Mantris. It should not be misunderstood as mantras that you recite.
So that's the first of the three essential.
And Kautilya writes, so his definition of Rajadharma is very simple, straightforward. He says the only responsibility of a ruler is to ensure two things for the citizens. Lokasangraha, welfare of all. And remember, all is the most inclusive word in India. There is no breakdown there. It's not only all that I favor, everyone. And the second is more powerful to me, and for me, I fell in love with that word, Yogakshema. It's not just a literal translation from Sanskrit, I try to explain it. If you see the whole context of Sanskrit, see the way I see it. It's about ensuring that I take care and protect the securities gained by my citizens. It could be political, social, religious, any kind of securities. And not only that, but creating a facilitatory ecosystem where I'm able to get them to generate more securities for themselves. And he says it cannot happen. And that's the beauty of what he says. If the Raja doesn't practice, is not an Indriya Vijayi, if he's not able to be the master of his own senses, he can never do this. So we celebrated Indriya Nigraha. And in that context, he says, well, he's also practicing. Now his philosophical 30% of it is done. He says, if you have to do this, you need Prabhava Shakti. You need Icha Shakti. I have to desire to be that kind of person. It begins with the finding the purpose of life. That I have to be something unique and special and deliver to my citizens. But I need the resources. Prabhava is not just material, it's the resources in its complete sense. And I need people who can tell me how to deploy this. So I must be very intentional intentional about wanting to do, to bring about change, but it is just going to be worth nothing if I don't have the resources to deploy. I might have the resources, but if I don't have the proper means to deploy them, what's the point? The idea, the way of doing it. So we need the power of counsel, we need the power of resources, but it all begins with the power of myself, the power within, finding true purpose. And that's why one of the places I write about a Prime Minister found this
So you
purpose.
call that passion, the energy or passion in a person, as Utsaha Shaktis, that's the, and the third of the essential Shaktis is Prabhava Shaktis, which is the resource. I'm just saying this for the benefit of the audience.
Don't give up too much. The trailer shouldn't be the movie. There are people who can read it.
No, but that's why this is a taster of the word, so that you can then read more about it.
It's just that that's the background in which I wrote. And like I said, Kautilya is very surgical. He doesn't waste time exploring too much. He said, you better understand, he gives it straightforward.
And Ambedkar, how did he practice? Ambedkar practice.
No, I think he lived this. If you look at him, he was very, very pragmatic. To me, the way I said, his purpose was, in a deep-rooted way, it's not about fighting for somebody's cause or utilitarianism in a larger perspective. I think most of us miss these points. So we celebrate and make an icon out of them, and we forget the message. The message of society.
Sadly, those people don't want that. Yes, Ambedkar did not want what we as human beings have created of him.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said the easiest way to have a Jayanti, Garlanding, and forget his message. Because if you look at truly his works with the depth that he needs, I don't think people are spending enough time on the scholastic messages, in a scholastic interpretation of how his message should be implemented. He spoke about this. He said, when he said, he didn't say Sangarsh doesn't mean just go beating us. Those confrontation isn't that way. A lot of us are Sangarsh between ourselves too. That is the power of good shelter for us to understand. How do you use it in a constructive way? This restlessness to be protected in a way that you think society is good. So society is good. Consulting, talking, that's what the dialogues are all about. And then bringing about something. So to me, I would only say they're powerful messages but highly misunderstood or interpreted in a very convenient way to suit certain political agendas rather than societal agendas. That's my view. I'm not saying that's right.
So now, I think we're doing Prime Minister's wish and desire justice by looking at multiple perspectives. But I think he is also the case study for this. So let's spend some time on looking at it from the perspective of how Prime Minister Modi is practicing some of these principles and cultures. We use the phrase that he talked about, pulse. Yes, he said something about Modi as pulse. One of the first things I realized about Prime Minister Modi was the things he was doing when he first became the Prime Minister was the thought that and I've said this often, is he has the pulse of the people. Now, leaders can be leaders in multiple ways, but from where they come determines how much they understand the people they serve. And in that context, I think he's had an amazing journey from the grassroots, from the people, to the highest point in the nation as well as global leadership. And some of these things are not only led by his own experiences and lived life, but also the understanding of the future. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
I would like to actually go back to an incident which happened when you were 6 or 7 years old. Now, if you look at, in the Western construct, Warren Bennis, a leadership teacher whom I admire and thought was original thinking, he writes about something called the crucible experience. Now, all of us have different experience in our lives. Many of us, it just becomes a memory point. Very few of us actually reflect on it and allow it to influence our thinking to the extent where we make a difference using that positive experience. When Modi was a young child in his village, it was very fascinating for me to discover and I validated this effort. His in the village that he was living in, the neighbor of the house, there was a married couple. I write up for the first time in the public domain through this book now. He was living in his neighbor, they were a married couple and they didn't have a child. And after a long period of longing for a child, they actually had one. And this was, the whole village was celebrating. And for Modi Khatija was, the way he explained to me was beautiful. He said, neighbor having a child, why are we all celebrating? every house makes some it's a festive occasion for everybody. Maybe that's the community living, true sense of an Indian village. And then within a week, the child falls sick and dies. And the whole village starts moving, grieving. And again for Prime Minister Modi, why are we grieving? That's not the story yet. The story comes later now. So he finds that the neighbor had a cow. And the cow had stopped eating after the child died. 2 days, 3 days, and Prime Minister Modi was quite amused. And as typical 6-7-year-old would do, he goes to his father and says, why is the cow not eating food? Right? And like typical fathers, you don't know the answer, but you can't say, I don't know the answer to the child. And his father told him, well, that's not the cow's way of grieving. The cow was very attached to the family, and maybe it also was happy with the child's birth, and that's the cow's way of grieving. That actually, as a child, you always believe what was told to you by your parents. 6, 7 years after that, when change starts. And then a little later, the cow dies. And that left a permanent imprint on Prime Minister Modi as a child. He felt that his thought for his mind at that time, he told me, was, if an animal can feel for human suffering, and this is the extent to which it can feel, we as humans, how much stronger should we feel for somebody's suffering? So 50 years of his life, my research starts from 17th year. And 17 to 19 were the years of traveling around India. I spent a lot of time in Himalayas at that time, going to ashrams, monasteries, etc. And I discovered a lot. I mean, as an author, you always consult the protagonist. And it was a deal between us. He said, 17 to 19 is my private space. Don't encroach on it. That's why you'll find hardly any reference here except saying that you travel around and went to Ramakrishna, which I had his permission to write that about. I've not written about his experiences there, 2 years. But then, 50 years of his life in actor, like a pracharak at the RSS, or as a organizing secretary of the BJP as a political party, or a chief minister of the state, the prime minister of the country. What stands consistent throughout is this deep desire to serve. But where does the grounded earthiness come from? Because as a pracharak, you understand the RSS's life. Now, we don't really get into reconstructing these things. And I started getting into it. I started meeting people who were like him. They go from house to house. They live a life of monasticism in a sense. They don't wear the awkward homes maybe. They have no money with them. They have no. When they travel to one house, somebody feeds them, and then they need some additional help. Somebody pays their bus charge to go to the next place. So that's how they live. That's how they live. Even things like I have an incident which the monks of, I didn't put it here, in the context of like the leadership book, the monks of the Akshardham group, Swaminarayan group, talking to them because PM has gone and visited, there's a direct capture of what they were doing, and they wrote of an incident that happened in Delhi. There was a public prayer meeting, and the Pramukh Swami then was they passed that what do you call that, the basket for funds, right, like in the church. It was wrong. And it was just the offering box was getting passed around, and the Pramukh Swami noticed Narendra, not even 30, 40 years actually, sitting in the back as a pracharak. And the Swamiji knew Narendra. He calls his assistant and says, give that man 10 rupees and come. He doesn't say anything else. So they go and give him 10 rupees. Modi takes it. Box goes around and Modi drops the 10 rupees into the box. And then this monk sees, the assistant monk sees what he's doing. And then he asks him, why did you even ask me to do this? He said, when the coin collection is going around, Modi is a very sensitive person. I know him. He always say, what can I give? And he has actually nothing to give him. So instead of making him feel a little bad that I don't have anything to give, I thought this best is to, but these are people who accept, because accepting also takes a lot of courage and effort. So give 10 rupees to him. And after I give it to him, it's his. Now he gives it as offering. So he's also, his emotions are also taken care, but that's the way he is. And then this they validated, and I found a lot of conversations. He said, that man has got a future. If you and I never understand now, so we have to protect him for that. And that's why protecting him has that kind of perspective. And you see throughout his groundedness. And I want to end with an example. The Vishwakarma scheme was launched in India. And those of you following India, I will call that. A few years ago, they announced the budget. It's about training artisans and rural artisans to join the mainstream economy. And within after 6 months of the budget announcement, the scheme wasn't really launched. And the Prime Minister was troubled. Every time the secretaries come concerned with present, you will not be satisfied and you will say, no, this is not what I had in mind and stuff like that. It never became a project. Finally, the program was passed on to the Niti Aayog and said, can you guys design a program in the ministry and implement? The CEO of Niti Aayog, I write about it in his book also. Mr. Subramaniam goes to the Prime Minister, and if you remember, Karnataka's assembly elections was happening, and PM was a star campaigner for their party, and he had come back after 22 hours of non-stop work. And these are not just exaggerated statements. We really know his works are very organized. And then the CEO gets an appointment to meet the Prime Minister. He goes to him, and he spends 45 minutes in a discussion on what is the Vishwakarma scheme. And he says, tells me, you don't seem to be happy with anything any of us present. I have come to ask you, what is it that you want? Right? And then he says, finally somebody asked me this question. And he just answers and says, he says, I was growing up in Gujarat. In my village, I could spot 18 different people, different traditional occupations, which people are engaging in, contributing to the economy of the village. They were called Baswayas in the Gujarati context. So he said these Baswayas kept the village alive, the economy alive. The microeconomy was generated through these efforts. Today there may not be 18 different professions. Maybe there are 5 or 6. Rest of all, the market economies are very destructive in that sense. The Papa Mama stores will disappear in most major economies. He said today maybe 4 or 5 are there. People are not getting it. God identified what are those traditional occupations that are languishing because they don't have access to markets. They're languishing because the skills are not upgraded to produce better quality products. They might be languishing because there's no launch pad of capital for them to start getting into that space. So can we just give the artisans enhanced training in their traditional occupations, make their products more marketable, give them a launch pad of 5 lakh rupees to set it up, 500,000 rupees to set it up. That's all I want. But if people don't get it. And then they went up to the drawing board. We discovered around 500,000, 600,000 people of that nature across the country. Today, most of them have become part of the macroeconomy. Now that is a kind of last mile problem that he wants to solve. That's because he's had this experience. A tea seller on a platform of a station, growing up and traveling around the country as a pracharak, as an organizing secretary trying to mobilize citizens. And I write two examples of during the famine how he mobilized communities, how practical and pragmatic he is. I think that's his strength today as a prime minister.
So again, you're giving examples of his having a pulse of the people, but also about grassroots work and economy and how it's driven, and those are some examples of how you're saying. But he's also a person who, and you talk about it, leadership requires a problem-solving attitude, and he again is a person who's problem-solving for India's development all the time. And then leadership also requires courage to make very drastic decisions and to drive things. Do you have any examples you can share with us about what your perception is about PM Modi's courageous decisions that he has taken?
Like, but people don't agree with me, economists will disagree. Look at the demonetization experiment itself. End of the day, it requires courage.
Absolutely, you mentioned that as courage.
And whether we can argue economically, and I don't get into that, but I'm looking at the leadership trends. Now look at the GST, languishing for such a long time. The taxation reform is not easy. Unifying it to get one particular process, it also requires a lot of courage, and that is pushed through. And today it's actually very democratic. The GST Council is the one that is it. People get bashed up with the national government, or the finance minister, or the prime minister. People don't even understand the mechanism. It's a council of all states representing and has been voted. And only the majority of issues can ever get implemented. It's a constitutional framework for this particular council. But very few of us really spend time collecting evidence. Now we are all led by the decibel levels of a conversation rather than by the intelligence of a conversation. That takes courage. And then even look at it. Simple thing like our refusal to toe the line, to say that we will not buy oil products from Russia. No, forget the moralistic arguments, etc. India had a very sensible, practical argument. India's energy security is a necessity for the Indian government to handle. And India's foreign exchange reserves is also something that we balance. If somebody is selling me oil that can be bought in rupees, you don't want me to buy from you, but you give to me the same terms, I'm okay with it. I'm not saying I have only buy from you. So the US government was willing to sell oil in rupees
what they are saying. Why not? Because India's people need energy. We cannot be stupid and say we will not have a petroleum economy, will not run, and because we don't have natural resources. We need it to get it from outside. I think that takes a lot of courage. The G20 declaration, or G20 saying that if you don't include Africa as a G21, there's no reason why India should be part of G20. That's very, very courageous to do. So telling that to the global 85% of the global world economy, it's not easy.
Well, to make that happen, I quote that very often, saying, also I